Money transmitting is going to a service or a vehicle or an entity or a person and having that business or that entity transmit money from here to there. It's licensed. It's licensed to the nth degree. There are statutes in most of the 50 states, if not all of the 50 states. There are federal statutes, and there are federal regulations, and there are federal regulations about the regulations. So, if a gemach is used in some fashion, and I'm speaking hypothetically, if a gemach is used in some fashion of here I'm putting money in the gemach and then I'm putting it for the benefit of somebody in a different place so that that other person can draw on the money, perhaps abroad or I don't know, then what seems like a very benign transaction all of a sudden becomes a money laundering transaction. Why? Because in order to engage in that kind of conduct, you need a license. You need a license. Transparency. Now I'm going to focus a little bit on the issue of transparency. And as I mentioned, it's really simple. It really is simple. If you conduct your affairs honestly, openly, you've got no problem at all. What does transparency mean? When you go to the airport and there's a form there and you're carrying more than $10,000 and you're carrying $10,001, you fill out the form. Fill out the form. This presupposes you're leading a halachic lifestyle, a Torah lifestyle. So if you've got $10,000, $11,000 in your pocket, you've legitimately come by it. You've either earned it or you've collected it if it's a tzedakah. Truth of the matter is, America is so free that you can take $1 million in cash and $12 million in cash and put it in a suitcase and carry that in the country. The only thing that the government is asking of you is transparency. You got to fill out this form. So, why not? If in fact, you're leading a proper lifestyle. The same thing with bank reports, these $10,000 reports. If you're running a business, or if you're earning, or if whatever it is that you're doing, and you're leading a proper lifestyle, you can't get into trouble. Because if you have $12,000 in cash that you earned yesterday, you go to the bank with it. Assuming you're not going to cheat the government and you're not looking to avoid the taxation on it, and you're going to do the right thing, you fill out the form. You let the bank fill out the form. Really, it's the bank ultimately that fills out that form. Merchants now have to fill out such forms. Attorneys now have to fill out such forms. And that's part of the tightening of all of these regulations that I've been talking about. So in the old Wild West days, criminals would walk with a bushel of cash and drive out in a Mercedes. The government says no, they can do that. We want a form, and we want to know what's going on here. And if in fact that person is dealing with stolen money or dealing with narcotics or I don't know whatever else he might be dealing with, the government is entitled to know. But our premise is that we're leading a proper life. And I've got to believe that virtually everyone in this room is leading a proper life. Sometimes there's, I don't know, an instinct, it's nobody's business, I don't want someone to know. But the government needs to know. The government wants to know, and you better tell the government. Because if you don't declare cash, not only will they arrest you, but they're going to keep the money. They're going to forfeit the money. And then, boy, you're completely out. Another sort of topical issue currently is something called FBAR reports, and these are reports regarding foreign bank accounts. The government wants to know. You can have you can have 20 foreign bank accounts. The government wants to know about it. That's all. And if you're paying your taxes, why not? And if you're not, well, shame on you. You're not only committing this crime, you're committing that crime. A couple of points I want to make. The secular courts don't have any patience for loopholes. Do not have any patience for loopholes. sad example of a fellow that I'm aware of who was transporting money, carrying cash across borders. He read into these laws, and I think he may have consulted with some lawyer who was not terribly skilled, and basically he read that banks are exempt from filing these reports. So he went and became a mortgage banker, declared himself a bank, and ultimately got caught. The government took away his money and took away years of his life. There is no patience in the law for loopholes. You've got to honor the law, and you've got to honor the spirit of the law. A few other points I'd like to address. Perjury, obstruction of justice, subornation of perjury. These are very serious crimes. Very serious crimes. Because the professionals in the law enforcement industry and the judges, they are used to dealing on a day-to-day basis with crimes. One crime is a theft, one crime is a tax theft, and whatever it is. But on the other hand, a perjury, or an obstruction of justice, or a subornation of perjury, is treated by them as a direct attack on their own functions. It prevents the law enforcement from doing their job. It prevents the courts from reaching truth, from getting at truth. And I will say this, anybody who engages in obstruction, anybody who engages in subornation or perjury will sin, will go to jail. In this regard, let me just take a couple of minutes to discuss how you deal with law enforcement. How do you deal? If a law enforcement officer comes to you, do not lie. Do not lie. You complicate things horrendously if you lie to a law enforcement agent. A word to the wise. If you can't lie, and I'm telling you, you can't lie, and if you can't tell the truth because there is something that is bothering you or some confusion that is bothering you, then don't say anything. There is no obligation. There is no obligation to speak to law enforcement when they come to you. I'm not saying don't cooperate with them. What I'm saying is, in the stress of such a confrontation, people sometimes instinctively tell a lie that comes back to haunt them dreadfully, or sometimes they make mistakes. When the recollection is not really clear, they make mistakes, and later on, law enforcement attributes those mistakes to intentional lies, and basically you're rolling downhill from there. So if you have anything on your mind, and if the police, the law enforcement come, if you have anything on your mind, just exercise your right, meet with a lawyer, refresh your recollection, get clarity, follow your lawyer's advice, and God willing, everything will be fine. The bottom line is something I heard earlier this evening. We had the privilege to meet with the Minsker Rebbe, and we were discussing this issue about Kiddush Hashem, and we have to engage in Kiddush Hashem and do the right thing, and the Rebbe said something that Rabbi Zibel mentioned. What the Rebbe said is you got to do the right thing to do the right thing because you got to do the right thing. Kiddush Hashem follows, but you got to do the right thing. Amen.
Thank you.